today's world.
Alright, so I wanted to get a vlog out there kind of giving my thoughts on something that I heard about through a website called Cosmic Book News. And the reason that I'm labeling this video as a rumor is because this could end up being bullshit. Because the news is interesting. As a guy who has been writing and doing journalistic work for a long time, off and on, this is too juicy of a story to pass up. But again, this could all be not true even in the slightest. But it says here there's the possibility that Disney could be shutting down Marvel Comics. Now, apparently, their speculation is because there's going to be a panel that is going to be at South by Southwest where Joe Quesada and Cebulski are going to be attending basically a panel called Marvel Comics from Comics, or Marvel from Comics to Screens. It's going to be an hour-long panel that will look at some, according to this, look at some of the most iconic characters and storylines that have contributed to the games, movies, and television series that are so renowned among popular culture. Everything starts with an idea, and Marvel Comics is the spark that lights the fire. So, the interpretation is that this is a desperate maneuver to basically sell people on the idea that Marvel Comics is still a relevant brand. So, I think that this is kind of a logical leap, but I like the thought experiment. So this is what this video is largely going to be. I am not saying Marvel Comics is shutting down for certain. I have no reason to think it is going to shut down at this point in time. This is, like the old comics, a what if. So, what if Marvel Comics shut down? What do I think would happen? Well, I have a feeling that if Marvel Comics were to shut down, or we no longer saw it as we used to, and there would simply be a Marvel brand that does not publish comics but rather outsources them or something like that, that is something I could see happening because it is cheaper to outsource than to have this giant bloated thing called Marvel Comics that is run by idiots. And they would start maybe to go into IDW or to other small independent companies to publish comic books with their titular characters as opposed to what they're doing now. Now, do I think that would necessarily solve the problems of the sales? No, I really don't think so. The reason that comic books are not selling is because a lot of comic books these days are not good. That is just the long and short of it. A lot of the main stories that are being written by writers honestly come across like they're hollow, like they just don't have enough. You know, one of the coolest things I thought was announced in recent comic books was that Ryan Ottley was going to be doing the Amazing Spider-Man. Now, Ryan Ottley did Invincible for I think like 95% of the run with Robert Kirkman, and it was an amazing book. It's one of my favorite comics of all time. And instead of that being a big celebration, the problem was that Nick Spencer was the one writing it. And I know that some people thought, well, he wrote Superior Foes of Spider-Man. It was a good book, so, he might be a good Spider-Man writer. No, not really. He's actually kind of a boring Spider-Man writer. I'm very happy he brought back Mary Jane Watson and Peter Parker. To that, I will be grateful to him for. I'm not exactly grateful for him using his Captain America run to call me a Nazi just because I disagree with him on foreign policy or something. Like, it's ridiculous. And, like, it's not even, like, a big disagreement. It's like, I think that immigration should be a legal thing that is done, and there should be a process that you shouldn't just be able to walk across borders and not be penalized for it. If I were a black man saying that, I wouldn't be accused of anything, by the way. But anyway, the point is that it ended up turning the entire thing mediocre. Now, I don't think that if they outsourced it that would fix things. The problem is not, the company existing; it's how it's run. You gotta keep something in mind. I did this on Twitter, and I'm gonna kind of explain my thought process a little bit more. There are 5 people I would blame for the problems at Marvel over the last 3 or 4 years. So let me kind of go through them, because the big thing is that Marvel is not healthy, and it has not been healthy for a long time. But who would I blame for this sort of thing? I would blame 5 people. I originally had a list of 4, and then I added 1 to it. So in order of blame, I would say Joe Quesada, Sana Amanat, Tom Brevoort, Axel Alonso, and CB Cebulski. In that order, and in order of blame. So why would I blame Quesada first? I would blame Quesada first and foremost, and the most, not because of One More Day, mind you, but generally his attitude towards his own fan base, the people that are the lifeblood of his industry. Quesada fucking hates comic book fans, and he will tell you the opposite, but he fucking hates you, and he fucking hates me too, and he hates any other comic book fan. Why? Because they complain. Joe Quesada has always had the attitude of, if I feed you shit or if I feed you sugar, you will swallow it all the same. That has always been his fucking attitude towards comic book fans. And that does not sell comics. I wrote an article on Bleeding Fool recently where I used the same analogy I did when I did that live stream with Ethan Van Sciver some months ago, where I basically said, imagine if you've got a restaurant that can sell you a tasty burger, and you go in, you drive up, and then all of a sudden the wait staff and the cook come out the front door and start chucking fucking bricks at your car. Are you gonna go back? Hell no, you're not gonna go back. When you got people and talented people like Bill Sienkiewicz, just being abusive to people on Twitter and saying if you disagree with me, you're a Nazi, and not telling them, cut that shit out. What are you doing? There's a reason that I do not talk about my day job on this channel or anywhere else in public life. Where I work, I keep a secret. And it's for that very reason, is I don't want the things that I say to be reflective onto them, because I do not speak as a representative of that company. I'm only a representative of that company while I'm inside that building that I work in. Whenever I leave, I don't talk about it. So, Quesada has always had a bad attitude towards fans. He has never given a flying fuck what fans think. He will just go with what it goes with. Not to mention his business model has always been terrible. He's way too reliant on events and collectors, and the bubble is starting to burst because this is the sad state of the entertainment economy right now. Is entertainment is more diverse, but it is not. It's not really making, or the audiences aren't necessarily getting wider. They're staying the same, and they're just buying more shit. They're very reliant on whales, the kind of people, and I'm not calling just because you're fat like me or something, but whale in the sense that these are the kind of people that spend a lot of money on one thing, on one hobby. They're really big into it, and they like spending money on it. And he has pissed off so many of the whales because they are buying these products and they're not getting anything cool out of it. And the good stuff that they want to see more of is going by the wayside. So Quesada has managed to fuck that up. If Jim Shooter were above Joe Quesada during the Quesada years, he probably would have fired Quesada around the time that Axel Alonso started his shit, and so on and so forth. Probably would have fired both of them, because Shooter had a lot more business savvy. Granted, Shooter was also the editor-in-chief about it around Avengers 200. A lot of people don't like him because of that. I can understand that, but Shooter was a better businessman. I don't think there's any denying that. Shooter would cancel a book if it didn't sell 50,000 copies. And it was a wise way to do things, because it creates competition inside the company to try to outsell one another and to try to have the best product possible. Competition's a good thing. But needless to say, though, Quesada, his policies were never feasible long term. So not only did he have a bad attitude, he had bad business acumen as well. He had one idea. He thought he had found a golden goose, and he basically put a gun to the goose's head the entire time and said, keep up the golden eggs, motherfucker. The problem is that at some point the goose has wrangled the gun away and shot itself in the face. So second person that I would blame would be Sana Amanat. Now Sana Amanat is the co-creator of the current Miss Marvel, and probably one of the worst superheroes I can think of in recent memory. Reason that I think that the current Miss Marvel is one of the most recent superheroes, just really brief, is that she does not have a nemesis and her stories are largely banal. There's not much to her, honestly. The only thing that she really has is the fact that she is of Muslim descent. Which, by the way, she is actually, technically speaking, a haram hero. She is a Muslim girl who has her head uncovered. Which, by the way, not the first Muslim superhero. Ethan Van Sciver, if I remember correctly, is the co-creator of Dust, who was an X-Man who was a superhero who was Muslim. That predates her. So, that's a lie. Ethan, if you're watching this, feel free to correct me, man, because I don't think I actually asked you that one directly, but I'm pretty sure you co-created her. I know you co-created another African-American mutant when you were doing New X-Men with Grant Morrison. But yeah, feel free to correct me, buddy. And so you need to come on the podcast again sometime soon. Anyway, but I would blame her because she was the one who injected and has basically tried to Trudeau it up when it comes to Marvel Comics and introduce more and more of a philosophy of intersectionality. Here's the problem with intersectionality. It is a Trojan horse of a philosophy. And I'm not going to go super deep into the philosophical thing, but think of it this way. I'm just going to use a metaphor for you. You know, finger across the throat means death, metaphor, blah, blah, blah. Nothing goes above my head. I love Drax. Anyway, so imagine if somebody says to this group of people, well, I'm going to get all of you on the same page, and I'm going to get everybody working together, and we're going to have this great time together, and trust me, I can make this whole place united. Let's say it's a workplace. And then that person says, all right, I want all the black people here, I want all the white people here, I want all the Indian people here, dot, not feather. And then I want all the Native American people over here, feather, not dot. And I want the Chinese people here, and I want the Vietnamese people here. And they section everyone off, and only those people work together. And then they go around, that person who has sectioned everyone off goes around and says, that guy's oppressing you, that guy's oppressing you. And they continue to sow dissent between one another. Well, what happens in the office? Everybody fucking hates each other at that point. That's basically what intersectionality does. It is, by its own nature, a divisive philosophy that pretends that it's a uniting one. It is a wolf in sheep's clothing. And it's a very convincing sheep. Again, Trojan horse. You let it in assuming that it's going to make the world better. It shits the bed. And when it comes to businesses, that is one of the worst things you can do. Because capitalism does not care. And capitalism by itself, without the interference of government, capitalism does not care about your skin color. It really does not. It cares about one color, and that's green. Do you have money? Yes, no. If the answer is yes, this product is for you, should be the attitude of every single fucking comic book company. Or any company in general in entertainment. And this is a general issue that they're having with the Captain Marvel thing. We're seeing the exact same thing. Is the Captain Marvel movie, the projections have continued to go down the more Brie Larson talks about intersectionality. And it's not trending in a good direction. And if that movie underperforms, Disney's going to see that and ask, why did this happen? And I don't think they're going to make the same mistake that they did with The Last Jedi and flirting with possibly keeping Rian Johnson and rehiring rehiring Kathleen Kennedy. I don't think they're going to do that again. Back on Sana Amanant, though, you can kind of see what I mean, though, is the more you introduce intersectionality, a business is no longer about making money, it's about making a political statement. Well, nobody cares about your politics when it comes to money. Nobody gives a flying fuck. I just got, because I'm off my diet stupidly, I'm getting back on it. I ordered Taco Bell tonight. And I didn't give a flying fuck. Cause I use DoorDash because I'm lazy. and my car's not working. I didn't give a flying fuck about the guy who delivered my food and what his politics were. All I cared about was that he had food being delivered to me from the restaurant that I wanted it from. That's it. That's all you should give a shit about. If somebody came up to me and said, Richard Spencer bought your... Like, once Project Lazarus goes up, which is the comic book I'm working on, one of the two. If somebody says, Richard Spencer, you know, or who's another person I dislike, or... in fact, I'll name a few people that I just genuinely don't like. Roosh V, Jim Sterling, Richard Spencer, and these are not all equal and evil, by the way. Richard Spencer, John Delarose, and Vox Day. Like, say somebody like came up to me and said, all those people bought your comic book. I really don't care. Like, they gave me their money. That's really the long and short of it. I don't have a relationship with them beyond that. By design, mind you. If I did have a relationship with them, you would know it. So... that's the general point of why intersectionality fails to make money. There are some people who believe in intersection are going to tell me that I'm not moral that way. No, I just don't think that it matters when it comes to a product. I do not have the job of judging every single person who buys something, and neither should any other company. It should not matter. And when you do this, you will ultimately lose money. You do not mix business with politics. It never pans out right. Third person I would blame for Marvel possibly failing would be Axel Alonso. Tom Brevoort. Axel Alonso's after him. Tom Brevoort, because Tom Brevoort, again, aside from letting these intersectional right side of history politics into the business, the other problem that Brevoort has is he's really, really fucking bad with talent. There are writers out there and artists that would like to work for Marvel, that would love to do Captain America or Spider-Man or X-Men or something like that, that are free agents right now, that are out there like putting stuff out on DeviantArt. And I'm not even talking about like Comicsgate people. I'm just talking in general. Putting stuff on DeviantArt, putting stuff on like here and there, who could be doing big books right now and making bank. He will not hire them. He will not. He will try to get the cheapest person that he can because Marvel doesn't want to give a halfway decent page rate to an artist. And the same with writers. You have to keep something in mind here. He was more resistant to Jim Starlin writing Thanos comics than he was to Gabby Rivera. Keep in mind, they promoted America Chavez, the character, as the next big frickin' thing. And obviously it failed. And they would not promote Jim Starlin's book. They wouldn't even send Jim a copy of his own graphic novel when it was finished. He had to buy it himself. That's ridiculous. And not to mention, he couldn't keep other talent on board. You know, it's been rumored rather, I haven't been told directly, but it's been rumored that part of the reason that he could not get Jonathan Hickman back or that Hickman didn't want to come back was because of Brevoort. And just because of how poorly managed Marvel is. And that's been the tale of Marvel for a while now, is that they cannot get writers who are really talented and keep them. Because the instant they start to get big, they either get neglected, like will eventually happen, mind you, to Donny Cates, who is probably the most talented writer on the staff right now. But eventually they will get ignored or just stepped on. Like, here's another really good example. The guy who was writing Venom before Donny Cates, who wrote God is Dead with, I just said his freaking name, with Jonathan Hickman, whose name escapes me at the moment, Mike Costa. But Mike Costa wrote Venom for 2 years, was constantly selling really well, completely ignored by Marvel. You know, and on Donny Cates, you know, outsold The Amazing Spider-Man for 1 month with Venom. Outsold it. Not word one from staff congratulating on that feat. Fucking ridiculous. They don't reward success there, and that's a problem. You're supposed to. So, it's incredibly annoying. There's old school artists that they could be giving books too. There's, old school names that they could be asking to come back and write certain stories, and they continue to lose them left and right. You ask yourself, why is J. Michael Straczynski not around? Why are all these other people not around? It's because the management's bad, and Brevoort is a big part of it. He has a reputation for being a cunt. All right, next person I would blame for this particular mess of where Marvel is would be Axel Alonso. Now, Axel Alonso presided over the end of old Marvel as we knew it, and again, a lot of really talented writers on staff at the time. Hickman's Avengers, in my opinion, the greatest Avengers comic book run ever. Second only probably to Busiek. And and then they did All New, All Different, and that was basically the beginning of the end. It was what killed Marvel Comics. And what did he do? He blamed it all on racism. This guy was and has always been the epitome of the song, "Everything is Racist," that, what's-his-face did. I'm bad with names today. I'm bad with names always, but that was generally the problem. I remember the failure of Red, White, and Black, and the critical backlash over it. Now, I know my artist for Project Lazarus, Bob Stone, really likes the book, which, to each their own, but I didn't like it, and a lot of other people didn't like it. And when it had a negative reception, instead of saying, well, maybe the comic wasn't that good, or people are entitled to their opinion, and, we'll strive to do better, yada, 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 he blames it on racism. And that was consistently how he would approach criticism, was, you don't have a valid opinion, you're not making a point, you're a racist. That is one of the worst things to tell a customer. Ever. Imagine if you will, and I will always compare one business to other businesses, because it is not apples and oranges. It is not apples and bricks. It is apples to apples, because businesses are businesses, and it's all capitalism, and they all work off of similar principles of business acumen. The ability to know how to present yourself in a market. Imagine, if you will, you go into an insurance office, and the automotive claim you have put in was not managed correctly. They didn't set up your rental car right. They set it up with the wrong company. You had to call a hotline and fix it. They didn't set up the repair facility right. You had to call and fix it. So on and so forth. So your agent's office has boned everything with this claim, and it has caused you quite a bit of heartache and stress in an already stressful situation. So you go into your agent's office and you complain, and the person, let's say you're a black man, and the person who is across from you at the desk at that agent's office is a white man, and he were to call you, and you lay forth your criticisms and you're polite about it, and that white person were to call you a racist for criticizing him. How outrageous would that situation be? Pretty friggin' outrageous, I would think. And the reason I do the role reversal is because I don't, first off, I don't give a fuck about intersectionality. Second, I really don't think that we're in a position where we can just deny the fact that people don't like to be called things that they're not. And if you're going to call someone a racist for disagreeing with you, I don't want to talk to you. You're a crazy person. And Axel Alonso fits that to a T. He went with Amanat 100% and introduced intersectionality, continued to defend it. If you criticized it, you were a racist, and then people walked away in droves. People want to see Tony Stark as Iron Man. People want to see Captain America be Steve Rogers. People like Thor to be Thor, and Jane Foster to be Jane Foster. And they like Jane Foster to be a nice person with a lot of heart. Not somebody who's constantly complaining about men and, oh no, men with their penises of death. Oh my, shut the fuck up. Finally, though, Cebulski is the fifth person I would place blame. The least amount of blame out of this whole cavalcade of morons. The reason that I would place it on Cebulski is he showed a lot of promise from the beginning. He canceled a lot of books right out of the gate when he came on there that were not selling, and it was a smart move. Unstoppable Wasp got canceled. Champions, Mark Waid, off the book. Avengers, new writer. So on and so forth. But the problems came when he wouldn't get rid of other writers that weren't performing. Reason being is it probably would have looked political. Were I in his shoes, I would have told Ta-Nehisi Coates, wrap up your run on Panther, we're bringing somebody else in. We've really enjoyed, and you give him the whole thing, you give him a severance and so on and so forth. You let him write his hit piece in The Atlantic. You get rid of him, though. He's a race hustler. It's not worth it. He's not good at what he does. You take the PR hit because press is stupid and there's fake news everywhere these days. Let CBR complain about it. Let Deadspin write their hit pieces. No one gives a shit. Nobody reads those rags anyway. Nobody who buys comic books. So, but Cebulski doesn't have a spine. He is a giant fucking jellyfish. And because he does not have a spine, because he would not stand up and say, we need to get our shit together, and did not have a long-term plan to get said shit together, Marvel found itself in a position where it was wasting time, wasting money, and so on and so forth. And there you have it. If Marvel fails, those will be the reasons why. Those will be the people to blame. And I am very, very, very much of the thought that it could indeed happen. Again, I don't think that this article is accurate. I think that it's jumping ahead about 5 steps, but Marvel is in trouble. If Captain America can't move 60,000 copies, which is about as much as Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers, was selling 10 years ago, you have a fucking problem. When you have shops shutting down nationwide, you have a fucking problem. When you overship and undersell, you have a fucking problem. They are burning through money. And they're not being smart. And that is what kills you in business. You have to be smart. You have to be smart. You have to compete. You have to want to win. And not just be on the right side of history. I mean, economically win. So that you can help people build futures, so that you can help people continue to grow their talent and take people who are good and nurture them and let them become great. To build the next Chris Claremont, to build the next Jim Lee, to build or the next Ethan Van Sciver, or the next, whoever, the next Jim Starlin. The next Dave Michelini, the next Bendis, because Bendis, so on and so forth. The next legend in the business, and they're not being built. They're not. Marvel used to be the house of ideas. Now it is the house of idiocy. My name is Micah Curtis. I'll see you next time. Davis Volt.